Hey, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Thriving Thoughts. I'm your host, Dr. Sherri. Listen, today is the final interview of season 4 of the Thriving Thoughts podcast. This season, you who have been following, listening, watching, thank you so much for your support. I pray that you have been encouraged, that you have found hope in the stories of my guests and in my solo episodes, that if there is a space where you have been feeling alone, that you are truly not alone, and that even in that alone space, even in that alone feeling, there is an opportunity to thrive, an opportunity to grow. Today, my friend Amber has come on the show to share a very real, raw, and personal story of thriving alone in the discovery that her father, her longtime hero, friend, was not who she thought he was. You'll hear all about that heartbreaking call she received on a Christmas Eve about 6 years ago, and the haunting alone spaces that she's had to travel between then and now. I'm so grateful to Amber for shedding light on this story. A trigger alert for many of you who have been sexually assaulted, or maybe you have a family member who is charged with sexual assault of a minor. Please keep that in mind, that this episode, while it does not contain graphic detail, it does contain detail specific to the emotional trauma and the alone spaces that one encounters in the aftermath of sexual assault. May you find truth and hope in the messages that my friend Amber has to share. Amber, my dear friend, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you on for the last interview of season 4.
Oh, me. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So this is just for the people watching and listening. This is a sensitive topic, and I'll go back and probably not for young ears to listen to. I would be my guess.
But maybe I guess it depends on the questions you ask.
All right.
Because
All
my
right.
4-year-old is sitting next to me. So
Okay. All right. Well, Amber. Okay. We'll figure that out along the way. So this season, hello, little one. This season is all about learning to thrive. So growing and prospering and flourishing as a person when you're feeling like you've gone through something where you feel alone. What is something that you have been and felt alone in?
most of my life, my dad was he hung the moon. He was just an awesome guy. Everybody loved him, never met a stranger. He was super helpful, very involved in church and ministry. And he just seemed like a man who was after God's heart. And he had a heart to serve. And then about 6 years ago, it was close to Christmas, and me and my husband and my kids were getting ready to go and visit my parents for the holidays. And we got a call from someone saying, "Hey, I don't think you should go. Um, one of my kids just told me that your dad has been assaulting them for a number of years." Um, and so that was, you hear that, and it's more than something that's unbelievable to you.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, were you like so struck in the face with it that you're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, for myself, I was a victim of sexual abuse when I was a child, not by my dad, just a totally different situation. And so, I know in the back of my mind, of course I know the kids don't lie about that. It's they just it's not a thing that a kid is going to make up and say this is something that happened when it hasn't. So, that truth is there, and that truth is there, but reconciling it with the man that I've known my whole life.
Right.
It's just those two things they didn't match. They didn't reconcile. It's like, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
And
So how did you respond?
I was just kind of like, okay. And I was kind of stunned. I was actually in Walmart at the time shopping.
Oh
And
my
so I was
goodness.
it wasn't a long phone conversation. It was just I called my mom,
Okay.
And she's in shock and she's in disbelief because they had been married for over 30 years.
So did this person also call her?
At that point, yes, I believe she had already heard that information. So I
Okay.
was not the one who told her. When I called her, she had that
She
information.
had that. Okay.
And so it was just, everybody was just kind of in disbelief, and she was shell shocked. She didn't have any answers for me. She was just kind of in a state of shock.
Yeah.
So, my husband and I, we were just kind of like, I mean, and this was like maybe 4 days before Christmas. So we were like,
Okay.
okay, well, we're not going to go. We're just gonna, we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're just gonna, we're gonna hang out here.
Mm-hmm.
So the timeline of all the details, it's a little muddled, because I
Well,
know
I'm
at
sure
some point,
you said your mom was shell shocked, but I imagine that you had a similar experience to that, just in a different way, because you weren't married to him, but he's your dad.
yeah, yeah, and I did, and it was, and it was I tend to be kind of practical sometimes, so I'm like, how can I put this in a practical box of, okay, well, this was our plan. Now I need to think of my kids and adjust my plans, and so it was really, I wasn't taking in the emotional aspect of it right at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because I had talked to him at some point after that other conversation, and oh no, that didn't happen. That's not true. I don't know why they're saying that.
That's what your dad said.
Yes, yes.
Oh.
And so I'm like, I don't know what's going on, kind of thing. And so Christmas Eve, oh, go
Uh-huh.
ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so the conversation that you had with your dad was after the confession or accusation or whatever was made.
Yes, yes.
Got it. Okay.
So Christmas Eve, we were all doing Christmas stuff at my in-laws' house, and he called me and he said it was all true.
Oh
He
my
he
gosh.
just called and he said, he didn't give me any details. He just said everything that has been said has been true. Those things happened, and he was crying, and just, oh, and not even it's, I'm sorry I let you down. Not, I'm
Oh
sorry I did
gosh.
those things. It was a, sorry. It was a very
That's the least of I imagine that would be the least of your concerns, your dad
mhm.
letting you down.
Yeah, and it was just and I think he has always tried to portray the image of, I'm this reliable guy, I'm this upstanding man, I am this wonderful person. And I think part of it was that image. He was still trying to protect that image in a way, I think. I don't know. I'm not
Okay.
inside his head. I'm so
Yeah, yeah,
baffled
yeah.
by all of that sometimes,
Right.
often. So that happened.
So do you remember what you said to him? Or did you
um
or were you just like on the other end of the line with your mouth agape? Like,
uh,
what?
Pretty much I was just kind of like, okay, that was
Mm-hmm.
just um you don't know how to respond to that. And
No.
so again, that was another kind of shock thing. And then I had to we were getting ready to open presents. So I kind of had to hold it in and go
Yeah.
in and um be happy with the kids, and
Mhm.
not react right in that moment.
Mhm.
So it was later that I was really, when I was home, and
Mhm.
you kind of break down and you're like, and it's still, this is still kind of how it is for me, is it just feels like there's just like a whole tornado
Mhm.
full of like 75,000 different emotions, and you can't just grab one and hold on to it.
Right.
It's like betrayal, grief, disgust, just all of it, and it's just all swirling around, and it's
Yeah.
like you can't get a hold of it, you
Mm.
know. Um so it was kind of a whirlwind like that for a while, and then
That's a really, really good way to describe what I could only imagine that the feelings you've been grappling with.
yeah, and then a few days later I got another call from my mom. um telling me that, because my younger brother was also staying with my parents at the time,
Okay.
and he was mid-20s. He was going to college and stuff, so he was there with them. They were on the way to the hospital because he had shot himself in the chest with a crossbow, because he had, I guess at that point, plans had been established that he was going to go back to the state in which that had happened,
Uh-huh.
because they weren't in the same state. And he was going to turn himself in and all that. But instead, he shot himself with a crossbow.
Oh my gosh. Now, was there a claim that he was trying to take his life by doing that?
Yes, that was what that was, because he had, and I don't know all the backstory about this part, but many years ago, when he was very young, he had been in prison. And so he was, I can't go back, I can't face
Mm,
it, I can't go through that again. This is just from what I was told,
okay.
my understanding of that. Um, so he was in the hospital for maybe a week or so, and then they did put him in a mental place for, I want to say, 24, 48 hours,
Okay.
um, before he was released. Because at that point, after that happened, my husband and my kids, we did go to the state that they were living in. We did go up there to be with my mom. He was not there,
Mhm.
and try and figure out what we needed to do for her. And there were some neighbors that were there, and they had offered to drive him to the other state to do all of that.
Mhm.
So then I was there with my mom and trying to help her figure out, what she was going to do, because she just was kind of at a loss. She had worked off and on throughout their marriage, but for the most part, she was just a stay-at-home
Yeah.
wife, and they're both in their 60s at this
Mhm.
point. Um, didn't own a car. They were renting a house. There was nothing in the way of savings. So she was kind of left just
Just
in shambles.
empty-handed. Yeah.
Yes. My younger brother came back to stay with me. And then she was going to come stay with me also, but she wanted to have a little time by herself to process. And she stayed for about 2 weeks by herself. And my brother and I, we drove back and kind of got him settled. And we don't have a very large house, so it was just trying to make everything work.
So so let me interrupt your train of thought there. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot happening here. It's not just emotions that are swirling around in this tornado above your head. It's okay, this is my dad. I love my dad. This is my dad. I can't understand my dad. I might hate my dad. This is my dad tried to kill himself. Oh my gosh, how does that make me feel? This is my mom who now I'm worried about because she's left to fend for herself. Now I've got to take in my little brother so that he's going to be okay. And so I imagine all of those emotions that were swirling. You you weren't even trying to get a hold of one of them. You were just treading water.
Yes. Yeah, it wasn't, and honestly, it was, I didn't have the opportunity to deal with it emotionally for quite some time. I mean, this has been about 6 years ago, I wanna say now, and it just, my mom was really just, she was devastated.
I
You
can't
know,
imagine. Yeah.
and in hindsight, her and I, we've been able to talk about how maybe there should have been a little more balance in us both being able to emotionally process and
Okay.
everything. But so there was a lot of taking care of her.
Mm.
So it wasn't,
There wasn't a lot of opportunity for you to process what you needed to process.
no, I mean, and my younger brother, he didn't want to talk about it. That was just, he locked it away. That was it. And, my husband was very sweet and tried to be very understanding, but he came from a very stable, very loving, very secure family
Mm,
where, those things don't happen. And
mhm.
when,
Well, I wouldn't even say that those things don't happen because those things, sexual assault is not a respecter
No,
of
no,
stability or socioeconomic it's not a respecter of anything.
no, I agree that, and that's not what I meant by that statement. I guess I just meant, his family growing up, they hadn't personally been affected by
By
anything like
anything
that.
like
They
that. Got
hadn't
it.
had,
Mhm.
his growing up, I don't believe, unless he hasn't told me about something, there hadn't been any really big, just
Mhm.
bizarre, out of left field, crazy things that had happened in his family.
Mhm.
So, um, just from his very, very stable perspective, he was as supportive and understanding as he could be.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, it's hard because, they're like, of course you feel like, well, how could we not know? He's just being this evil person and really hurting and damaging other people in the most horrific ways. And you feel
Mm.
like, okay, we think we know him, so there's a responsibility with that you feel, which I know now.
Well, let me
It's
ask you. Let's focus on that for a sec,
okay.
because how the way that you worded that. How did you word that? You said, do I know? How did you word that? How do I know him? What did you
Well,
say?
how do we not
How
know?
did we not know?
Hmm.
So, all right, here's my suspicion. So, not only did you ask yourself, how did we not know? Were you presented with pseudo accusations from other people? How could you not know?
um
Or were
not
there any undertones of that?
not for me. I feel like for me it was more like nobody came right out and asked, but I felt like there were times as I was discussing this with people where they were wondering if I was a victim to that, but had never come forward with it.
Mhm, mhm.
But I know, I mean, even family members, they would, as far as my mom goes, like family members that we hadn't spoken to in years. Oh, well, how she must have known
Oh
because she was
gosh.
just so in love with my dad. And so there was a lot of that where,
That is
um,
that's just an added layer. It's like insult to injury.
mhm. So there, I know that there was more of that for her,
Yeah.
you know. So that's, yeah. And there was, and then there's nobody to really talk to about it. It's like,
So when you asked yourself, how did I not know? What were some of the conversations you had with yourself?
well, I think, just as far as like my relationship with my dad, for most of my life, I just thought he was this amazing, wonderful guy. And it had kind of been where I was
As
coming,
did everyone, because I knew your dad
yeah.
for a year. I thought he was a great, nice guy.
But I know for me, I was kind of coming into that place in my life where some of the disillusionment just of how wonderful he was
Mhm.
kind of wearing through. I was seeing more of the selfishness and the self-centeredness in him.
Mhm.
Right. And it's just little things where, and I guess probably every child goes through this with their parents as they become adults and they see
Yeah.
their parents' shortcomings.
Yes.
Um, but for me, just we would be on the phone and he was pipe dreamers, always with the pipe dreams and the schemes and money making ideas. And you'd get on the phone with him and he'd talk for 20 minutes about his ideas without asking you how you were. And then he'd be like, okay, I gotta go.
Mm. And that's the way it had always been.
Yes, but it was just over a few years before that we got that other news that was really starting to
To
impact me, and I
show.
was starting
Okay.
to
Yeah.
notice that. I went off on a rabbit trail and I forgot the question. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. So that's what I'm here for, to bring us back. So I was asking, what were some of the darkest places when you were asking yourself, how could I have not known?
Okay. Right. So, okay, I'm sorry. So, yes. So, I mean, there was a part of me that felt like, okay, I was starting to see that he wasn't necessarily as great, but there was still nothing that said this is who he really is. And I just, when you, I think anytime you see someone that has been hurt in such a way and you just feel like it shouldn't happen. I know
Mhm.
that we are in an imperfect world. And so, I mean, of course you look for someone to blame. And I
Sure.
really, for me, I just had to I just really had to make myself say, I didn't know, I couldn't know,
Mhm.
and allow myself to not hold on to that, I
Yeah.
guess.
Because it's really an impossible question.
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think there's any answer to that. So how many kids did you have at the time that you found this out, and how old were they?
I had two, and my youngest, right around two. So
Mhm.
my oldest was four,
Okay.
because they're very close in age.
And
So
had you had any concern about your girls? Like you mentioned, other people might have had concern about your girls.
mhm.
Did you have any concern about your girls having been victim to that?
I did actually. I had a conversation with their pediatrician just to see what her thoughts might be, if there was anything, because I didn't know at the time how. I mean, I know it's all bad. I didn't know the level of what had happened with what had happened.
Mhm.
So like I didn't know. So I did, I talked to the pediatrician, and I would, just to find out, are there things that I should be looking for,
Mm.
paying attention to, that might be an indicator if this happened or not. And her response was kind of at that point, well, I mean, they're very young, and it's just a hard thing to see
Yeah.
if, so that was definitely a concern, because I
Mhm.
mean, I know they had moved around a lot. So they had just, in that same year, they had spent a few months staying at my house.
Mm.
So that's definitely that was definitely a concern.
How is that concern gone now, or is that still a concern you have?
I don't know. I mean, I hope that it is not
Is it
a
something that's
thing.
present in your mind?
It's not something that I think about too often
Okay.
anymore. I mean, I did for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think about it too often
Mhm.
anymore. I mean, my kids are much older. They're very happy and
Mhm.
balanced, and um I mean, and I know that I'm not saying that people cannot be happy and balanced after something like that has
Yeah.
happened in their life. Um, but if it were a thing that happened in their life and it is a thing that they don't remember, then I'm certainly not going to try and delve into, did this happen in your life or not?
Right. Right.
So we are just in a moving forward
Yeah. Yeah.
stage
Uh-huh.
um with
Now,
that.
what about for you? So you had said before people had questions for you. Did your dad do that to you when you were little?
It No, I mean, and like I said, it wasn't just outright asked. I would be having There were a few people, and I mean, when we first found out about this, there was just a handful of people
Mhm.
that I really confided in on what was going on. And and I don't remember the exact comments, but there were things, when you're in a conversation with someone and you can tell what they're
Mhm.
saying without saying.
Right. Right. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and so, there were some people where I was just felt comfortable enough to be
Yeah.
outright like, no, this never happened.
Mhm.
Um, and other people, I was just like, I don't really care what they think.
Mhm.
It's none of their business.
Right.
Um, so for me, it was just more hinty
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
Um, Whereas with my mom, it was just outright, oh, she had to have known
Mm.
comments. So it was kind of, it was different for both of us for
Mhm. Mhm.
how that was addressed,
So
I guess.
talk to us a little bit about I cannot imagine. I can't even only imagine. I just can't even fathom. You love your dad and he's, like your hero. He's your guy. He's your dude. And then suddenly he's not that person anymore. He's a different person. And so it's like your relationship, not your idea, not just your idea of him, but your relationship just it evaporates. It's like poof, like what happened? Can you share with us some of the most difficult parts of that
I
journey?
think, I'm sorry, I just cut you off.
Mm-mm.
Um, there was a lot of it was like my dad died. The
Ugh,
man that I knew as my dad, it was
mhm.
like he died. It was that kind of a loss.
Yeah.
Um, because in all senses, that's what happened. The
He,
man that I thought he was, the man that I had a relationship with,
yeah,
you know, it was gone. It was
gone.
just totally eradicated from everything. But at the same time, I felt like I couldn't really grieve
Yeah.
because of the man that he actually was.
Mm.
And
So like reconciling, how do I grieve somebody I loved who now is this monster?
yes, yeah. And I still wrestle with that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scrolling through Facebook and you see the posts of, light a candle if you miss your dad in heaven or something. And I know he's not dead, he's in prison where he should be. But but there's not, I will never be able to do that. I will never
No.
be able to, even when he does pass away someday, there will never be a moment where I can just grieve for the dad that I knew for the first 30
With
years of my life.
without the new knowledge.
Yes, yes. Because it just, who he really was, it tainted everything.
I,
Every
that's
memory,
mm.
it tainted it all.
That's what I was going to ask you, like, because as adults we run into things and different smells, different environments, different places, and we have flashbacks, we have memories of something with
Mhm.
someone. And so what happens to you when you have is it like you have this fond memory and then you're like, ugh, or like how does that go for you?
It's mostly like, ugh.
Like the fondness is just
It
fleeting.
really, there isn't fondness anymore. I mean,
Mm,
I can talk about now, I can be like, okay, well, this is a memory that happened when I was a kid, that like if it involves my whole family or something, we went here and we did this.
mm-hmm.
Um, but it's not like a fond memory of him. He's just mentioned because he
He was
happened
part of
to
it.
be there.
Mhm.
Um, but it's like there's not every memory that I have, like from when I was little, any memory that I have of him is always followed by, was that the man he was then and we just didn't know it yet?
Oh
Was that
gosh.
happening in his life then? So it's like for me, like, the song that I danced to at my wedding with him, I can't even listen to it anymore. And I loved that
Mhm.
song. There are just things that it's ruined. All of the memories, every memory is just, that's not who he was. And was he
Yeah.
that evil person at that time? And it just, there's no fond memory. There's no moment of fond memory.
So basically, all of your fond memories have been taken from you.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's really, it's something you don't think about. And that's why I'm really grateful that you agreed to come and share this with me and with the listeners and the people watching. What are the things that you still grapple with? Like, I know you've resolved some stuff, maybe, I don't know. But what are some of the things that maybe you feel are more resolved and some that you still struggle with?
Um, I mean, there is definitely still the moments where I would like to be able to grieve and can't. That sense of loss. I mean, I know,
Why when you
recently,
say you say you can't because when you attempt to do that, the tainted parts come back or
it feels like even grieving for him is just wrong. It feels like it's a betrayal to the people that he hurt. It just feels wrong. I don't, I'm sorry, I don't actually know how to put it into words. It just, because he's not really gone, but he's really gone. Um,
well the man you knew is gone.
mhm.
Um and so I remember I want to ask you about something I told you when this was happening. And you may not even remember what I told you, but I wonder if you've been able to embrace that at all as truth for you to allow yourself to love him and hate him.
Honestly, I can say that I don't hate him.
Okay.
I am disgusted with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's just like a physical disgust. It's just I have been sick over this.
Mm-hmm.
Um I also don't know that I could say that I love him.
Yeah.
Um I mean, at this point in my life, the strongest emotion that I have towards him is just disgust and bewilderment.
Mm.
Um
Do you
I
still have
just
a relationship with your dad?
know I when my mom filed for divorce, I helped her with that, and I had to be in contact with him for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I did my best to keep it very to the point without personal information about anyone. Just this paperwork needs to be signed,
Mm-hmm.
notarized. Um, and then he had sent a letter in response, which, can you let me know? I want some information. I'm going to go ahead and take care of this, but give me some information, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
So
so,
it's logistical contact, if any.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, when he left everybody letters, when he went to surrender himself to
Okay.
um, the authorities, and it was all the sorry I got caught, the I'm sorry I'm going to prison. It was just,
There was no actual acknowledgement that what he
mm-mm,
did was
evil.
100% evil. Yeah, I was
There
just
was
gonna
there
say
was
evil.
yeah. So that's really, so no, there's no relationship or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And that was 4 years ago, I think, when she finally got that paperwork through for
Mm-hmm.
all of that. So
Mm-hmm. Is Christmas um post-traumatic for you?
it has been. I will say probably this year was the easiest for me. I mean, the following Christmas was definitely hard. And then my husband's family, they're very loving, and he has a really wonderful dad. And that was really hard for me. The first one was, it was just like a gut punch,
Mm-hmm.
just, but I mean, honestly, because we spend a lot of time with them, and he has a sister who's close to my age, and I go over there and I'd see them interacting, my sister-in-law and my father-in-law, and not even at Christmas time. And it was just, that was very difficult for the first few years. And I used to be crazy Christmas person. I would just go all out. And so this year was the first year that I was like, okay, I'm going to go buy new decorations. I'm
Mm-hmm.
really going to do up the house. I mean, I did the tree and some decorations and stuff, of course, for my
Mm-hmm.
kids, but this was the first year that I really felt it.
Hmm.
Um, so that, definitely lingered and affected the holidays. And, of course, Father's Day is always hard. And,
Tell us what's hard about Father's Day for you?
um, well, I mean, I think just, well, of course, there's all the Facebook posts.
Uh-huh. So see, right.
You see
Seeing
that,
other people have a dad.
they have a dad, they get to celebrate their dad, and or miss their dad. And so it's just hard. It's just it's a missing piece of me. It's just a missing piece of me.
It is missing.
Um I mean, so then, I do turn it around and make it about my kid's dad, but there are those moments throughout the day where it's just, okay,
Yeah.
my dad is this horrible person. And
Mm-hmm.
you know um so it's
Did you ever feel like guilty just because he was your dad? And guilty of what? I don't know. I just mean like a guilty feeling.
um I don't think that that's something that I felt. No, I don't think I ever felt guilty like that. I mean, had I ever had any prior indication of that's
Yeah.
who he might have been. But I mean, I think,
I guess maybe what I mean is like guilty by association, not like guilty like you're a party to it, but
you
like
know,
stained, tainted because this is part of me.
I guess more like shame, kind of,
Okay, yeah.
maybe.
Mhm.
Um, not not now. I mean, because there were times when it was, I mean, it's hard to say this is who my dad is. This is what
Mhm.
he's done. It's
Mhm.
just, I mean, it's just so beyond gross. He's
Yeah.
just like, I mean, just it's evil. It's he's just an evil person.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I don't, again, it's not, I'm comfortable talking about it now. I don't feel like I carry that anymore.
Mhm.
I mean, and for me, I'm able to, like, I don't let my kids do sleepovers. I don't let them go hang out at other kids' houses if their
Mhm.
dad's there. And I know that men are not the only people who are offenders, but I know
Mhm.
that statistically it's higher.
Mhm.
Um, and if a parent ever has a problem with that, I do, I feel I have the freedom to be like, look, this is who my dad was. This is who we thought he was. This is who he turned out to be.
Yeah.
So don't take it personally.
Right.
This is my
This was
stance, though.
somebody who was that close to
Mhm.
me and I didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I will say, it took me a good year or so before I was comfortable leaving them with my
Mm.
mother-in-law. My father-in-law was there, and he's a wonderful man, and I would never
Mhm.
think that, anything about him. But it just, for my own sense of security,
The
it.
protector really became,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah.
So, and again, that's something that I've healed past, I've grown past, um, in
So
regards to my family.
speaking of healing and growing, because I'm a firm believer that we never like move on from something. Like everything that we experience is a part of us. It remains a part of us. It moves on with us
Mhm.
in some form. We never like get over and forget and move on. Um, so, but for you in the healing process, this healing journey, um, what do you feel like is something that you've learned, or even two or three things that you've learned about yourself in the process?
Well, I mean, I feel like I am definitely stronger than I maybe realized. Because it wasn't, I mean, it was that, but then it was also, it kind of fell on me to pick up the pieces of everybody around me. Um,
So you put your grieving process in the back seat to be able to do that.
yes.
Yeah.
But I have also, that's another thing though, is I have also learned that I can't always do that.
Hmm.
I have to, yeah, I mean, I know that sometimes you have to take care of people,
Mhm.
but I also have to find the room to take care of me and
Mm.
to deal with things and process them, because I will suppress like nobody's business. I am
Yeah,
an
and
excellent
pour
suppressor.
right, and pour into others as a
Yeah.
distraction. Not as a distraction, but like, okay, I've got it. Yeah, if I focus on pouring into others, then I don't have to deal with my own stuff. So that's really good. What are you learning in terms of how to do that, in terms of how not to neglect your own grief?
um, I don't know if I can put it into words. I mean, it's just, I mean, everything that we go through in life, we pick up little lessons along the way, and
Mhm.
I don't know if we can always, I mean, for me, I can't always pinpoint this is exactly what I learned and this is when I learned it. It's
Mhm.
just, I guess it is that growth of,
Yeah.
okay, in hindsight, I can look back and say, okay, 4 years ago, this is how I was and this is how I am now.
Mhm.
And somewhere in between those 4 years, it was like a subtle growth of,
Right.
maybe it was moments of me becoming overwhelmed because I
Mhm.
hadn't dealt with my stuff and having like emotional explosions,
Yeah.
or being able to have open conversations with my mom where I was like, it really wasn't fair.
Mhm.
You had a husband and you have, she's married to a wonderful man now. He's just loves the Lord, very, very, very sweet, gentle man. But I was able to say, I know that you lost your husband,
Mm.
but you were able to kind of refill that void in your heart that longs for companionship, where me, I don't ever get to feel that.
Mm-mm.
That's not going to happen. And it wasn't fair. I was able to tell her it wasn't fair that I had to spend 3 years kind of holding you together and
Mm-hmm.
not being allowed to feel anything. And, she's to a place now in her healing where she was really able to acknowledge that. And, you know, she was, apologetic and sympathetic to, yeah, I was right. And I needed to have had that opportunity. So just, I mean, even in conversations like that, where
So
we
that's
moved.
changed your relationship for the better. Sorry to
Mhm.
interrupt you.
No, that's okay. No, it has. It definitely has. Cause I think and I don't want to speak for her, but I mean, I know that we have both come to a place where we can talk about it now, and it's not an emotionally driven conversation.
Mhm.
It's, we're in that position of having hindsight and being able to take stock of it all. And
Mhm. If you could look back on yourself and maybe what you would have needed to hear, which you obviously wouldn't have known then, but maybe you are more privy to now. Or conversely, you can think of somebody who is listening, who is an adult woman or man, and they're going through a similar experience. What would you tell them that maybe they might need to hear?
um that's a good question. um I think for me personally, because part of the position that I was in was being concerned with everybody else. Um, I did carry initially, okay, he's going to prison. Is he going to be safe? Um, like I felt like I had to feel that.
Mhm.
Um, and I would have loved it if somebody would have come to me and said, you know what, it's okay for you just to be glad that he's going to prison.
Mhm.
Because I was, I
Mhm.
was happy. And um but I felt like, okay, that family loyalty of, oh, he's my dad and I don't want him to get hurt, but that's okay. It's okay if
Yeah.
he gets hurt. Now I'm kind of like, well, maybe he needs to get hurt.
Mm.
It's just, I mean, I know that that's probably a wrong attitude, but um, I think just having somebody tell me that whatever emotion I'm feeling, it's okay.
Yeah, right, right.
It's okay to grieve the loss of the person that he was,
Mhm.
to feel a sadness for that.
Mhm.
It is okay to hate him for a
Mhm.
while, as long as you're not getting bitter and unhealthy
Right.
about it. I think that's a natural
Yeah.
process. But just having freedom, that just to let him go, just
Mm.
to have the freedom to say, I'm cutting him off. I don't have to
Mhm.
worry about him or think about him. I don't have to hate him. I don't have to love him.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I have the freedom to just be like,
I'm
he's
done.
gone. I'm
Yeah.
done.
Mhm.
Um, and so that it took me a while, and I think there are still moments where, I have to remind myself it's okay for me just to be done.
Yeah.
So that would be, I think, something. Um,
That's good. No, I love that. Is your dad ever getting out of prison?
he was sentenced to two simultaneous 25-year sentences.
Okay. And that was about 6 years ago or so.
So I believe in 2040 something,
Okay.
he may be eligible for parole.
Okay.
Um, I mean, he would be close to 90, I want to say.
Mhm.
But I just hope that that is just where he stays, because
Yeah.
I think that that is where he should be. I think that he spent so many years being a master manipulator and deceiving people about who he really was.
Mhm.
I don't think he is a safe person to ever have the right to be out amongst people again.
Yeah.
I believe for the damage and the wreckage and the destroyed lives that he caused,
Mhm.
he should never have any kind of freedoms again.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a good conversation to have.
Mhm.
I think that it's something that people should be able to talk about more. I mean, I know, I mentioned that something had happened to me when I was younger,
Mhm.
and it was a friend's dad. And, when I told her that it happened, she just started crying, um, because it had been happening to her for years. And then when we told her mom, of course, she was irate and she was livid. And then she came out and said, well, he's going to stay here because we can't afford to make him leave. And I just feel like, and then I was asked not to say anything, which that didn't happen. I said something,
Mhm.
but
Did you ever press charges?
I did. And I remember going to the police. It wasn't like a police station. It was maybe a counselor's office or something. They gave me the teddy bear. I told them my statement. They wrote it all down. I remember doing all that.
How old were you?
I was 12. So
Mm.
I was already older, but and it was all just yeah, I was 12. But from what I understand, he only spent like 2 weeks in jail because I don't believe that my friend's mom pressed charges,
Okay.
because for her that had been happening since she was 3.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so that was a long thing for her. But it there wasn't, her mom didn't feel like I have a resource where I can say I have to make this man leave,
Mm.
because of this. And I feel like it's just, I mean, something that needs to be talked about. Like,
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on the show and share that because that's my desire is to let people know that they're not alone. It's and things like this and experiences like this where it really does feel like you're alone.
Yeah, I mean, I think, gosh, I know, and again, this was more my mom than me, but it was she didn't want to talk about it for a long time because I know there was more shame and stigmatism for her. Um, but man, I just think if people can talk about it, because obviously we are not victims to any degree of the people that he hurt,
Mhm.
but there was still some serious ruin that happened in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just feel like there should never be anybody who feels shame because of what somebody that we loved has done.
Yes.
That's not ours.
Mhm.
We didn't know. I mean, we can't take that on ourselves. And there needs to be opportunity for healing and moving on
Yeah.
from that. Mommy, just a minute, baby. I brushed my teeth. Good job. She brushed her teeth.
All right. Well, as we close out here today, I ask every guest to share at the end just one thing, one truth that you want the listeners to remember when the show ends. What you have learned, a truth you have learned.
I have learned that I am resilient,
Mm.
and life will kick you in the proverbial nuts and we can rebound. I mean, my truth is, things that you never imagined being able to hit your life,
Yes.
it does. And
Mhm.
you can push through it and
Yeah.
you can come out on the other side
Yeah.
stronger and wiser
Mhm.
and with better perspective.
Mhm. I love how Amber shared her heart with us and the utter realness of her story. And I hope that if you've been impacted by this message, if you feel like you're navigating that alone space right now, that you feel like you're not alone, that you feel like you have a comrade, a friend. And I trust that you will take Amber's words of wisdom, words of truth as your own, that it's okay to feel all of the things. It's okay to feel the grief. It's okay to feel the anger. It's okay to feel the disappointment. It's okay to feel the love. Even if you find that all of your memories of this person that you loved have been tainted by who you now know them to be. It's my desire, friends, that this show be like the therapy room exposed, where we're talking about things that maybe some of us only feel are qualified to talk about behind closed doors and behind four walls. I pray that you see this as a safe space, one where we can talk about the real stuff, about the real thoughts that we contend with, and how we can learn, grow, flourish, and prosper, even through the darkest places. This season has been all about thriving alone. And even when it feels like you are all alone, I hope that you go back and replay some of these episodes. Share these episodes with a friend that you know is going through something and they feel alone. Offer them the encouragement, offer them the wisdom that I've shared from the guests who have been brave enough to come on the show for season 4. Friends, I have the last solo episode of season 4 coming to you this Friday. And in that episode, I'm going to be announcing the theme of season 5, which you guys, I'm so excited about it. And I can't wait to tell you about it. That'll be the great reveal on Friday. Also, please remember that I have a space where you don't have to feel alone. I have a space where you can connect with me on a regular basis, and that's in my Thriving Thoughts texting community. All you need to do to join is text the word THRIVE to 540-369-2139. Those instructions are in the show notes for you to refer to at a later time. If you're in your car driving right now, do not stop to write down that number. But do check it out. We'd love to see you there. I text you 3 times per week with a challenge and with an encouragement so that you can establish and walk in a thriving thought world, so that you can learn to speak truth over the lies, so that you will thrive.